Holy smokes, we are live. We are live. Welcome to College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Pflugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do as well, please subscribe to our channel. Smash the like button. If you like our content, share the video with your family and friends. If you want to support this channel through a donation, just hit that $ where you make a comment and I'll get to you super chat as quick as I can. Welcome into the studio that sits on the corner of Keith Jackson Parkway in Kurt Gowdy Avenue. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to be a legend in the chat room and with your phone calls later in the show. And we have got a stack show. In fact, we already had to make an executive decision. I can't do the spotlight. The next team that we're going to do the PAT Spring Spotlight on is the Nebraska Cornhuskers. And I'm pretty optimistic about Nebraska this year. I think their secondary could be improved. The wide receiver room going to be definitely improved. They're going to have two true freshmen leading the team at quarterback. Dylan Raiola is an extreme. He's at the top level when it comes to talent. The running back position, we'll see. The offensive line, we'll see. The defense is going to be very good. Once again, on the defensive coordinator. But this is not the spotlight. I don't have time. I apologize. Hopefully tomorrow when we do a live show, we'll have time to do a spotlight on Nebraska. That's the next team up. We've done about 25 of them through the spring. Nebraska is the next team up. And I'm just to give you a wink and a nod, a little hint, I'm optimistic about Nebraska. I think they're going to get to a bowl game this year. But we've got a stack show. I've already got to push another, besides the spotlight, the spring spotlight, I got to push another story out of the way. I'm not even going to bring it up. Maybe we'll do an episode on it tomorrow. I don't know. There's so much going on. Man, and we're not going to do another marathon live show tonight. This Wednesday nights, I'm always busy anyway, so we're going to slip this one in because there's so much going on. There is so much going on. For those who are early peak Cloak and Dagger members, we dropped an episode this morning. I hope you've seen it. I hope you've taken time to look at it. If not, take a look at it after the show. And I might just go ahead and show some of it here on the live show. But it has to do with the Board of Governors basically stripping all the power away from the Board of Trustees at UNC Chapel Hill. And that is, keep that, not just the ability of UNC Chapel Hill to make decisions on their own in regarding conference affiliation. Also stripping the powers away from UNC Chapel Hill on their ability to initiate litigation, to settle on litigation. It's going to be the Board of Governors, who represents 17 public universities in the state of North Carolina. They're going to be making the decisions, even on the settlement. If North Carolina talking with the ACC in the courts or outside the courts or whatever, it's going to be the Board of Governors who's going to be initiating. Okay, so keep that all in your mind. Keep that percolating as we hit a big story tonight covered by the great Matt Baker of the Tampa Bay Times. He's doing some incredible work. Absolutely incredible work. The title of the show is The ACC is Hiding the Vote. If you were with us yesterday when we were watching Leon County, the courtroom, Judge C. Cooper, and there was one point in there where Judge Cooper was asking who voted in that January 12th amended vote, the amended complaint. Who voted? Who were the 3/4 of the schools that voted to give the authority to the commissioner, Jim Phillips, to go ahead and file that amended complaint in Mecklenburg County? And the lawyer didn't answer. The lawyer did not answer. The lawyer did not answer. He said, well, we can get you that information. Like he doesn't know. It wasn't in front of the judge. We didn't hear it in Mecklenburg County. We did not hear it in Leon County. The judge did not have the minutes. The lawyer knows, but he didn't want to say it out loud. And I got a feeling that it isn't so much who voted for it, who voted to give Phillips the authority to file the amended complaint in Mecklenburg County. That's not the story. The story is who wasn't there to vote. We know North Carolina wasn't there. I mean, we know that Clemson wasn't there. Because that came out in the courts. That came out. We know that Florida State wasn't even told about it. We know that Clemson wasn't there because they said it in Pickens County in their file. So the question is, who wasn't there? I mean, I think we all can take a guess, but we don't know for sure. They won't say it out loud because if they did, I think it would have a thundering effect, if that is a word. The ACC is hiding the vote. Reporters are trying to get the minutes. They exist. The minutes exist. The minutes exist to that January 12th meeting. They exist in a secure box. Now, I don't believe a box, a wooden box, but some sort of email digital box. So we're going to go through that story. And then we're going to talk about the grant of rights. The ACC grant of rights. I believe that Doug Rohan is going to be on the Big 12 Mafia show later on this evening. I think everybody should watch it. I'm just going to go over the grant of rights. I'm just going to read it real quick. I'm going to post what Doug Rohan, the lawyer, who's out of Atlanta, Georgia, Florida State alum, he's been helping everybody try to understand what the heck is going on. And I want to give you his interpretation of it. It makes sense, even for the fat guy in Minnesota, whose elevator doesn't even come close to getting all the way to the top floor. But I think after, as much as I can possibly understand, it seems to me, holy smokes, we really have to see what's in that ESPN and ACC media agreement. We got to see that. And I think if this case continues on, and it looks like it's going to continue on in Leon County, that whole thing, that whole sucker is going to blow wide open. I think that ACC ESPN agreement is going to be put out there in public. That's my hunch. Sure sounded like that from Judge Cooper's remarks. He'd made no ruling on it, just his remarks. So yeah, we've got a stacked show. I mean, it is an unbelievably stacked show. We're very busy. Very busy Thursday, April 10th. So be patient. We'll get through it. We're going to have a good time. We're going to learn some stuff. Cloak and dagger, cloak and dagger, cloak and dagger. The ACC, for now, is hiding the vote, hiding the minutes. Richard L., Mr. Buffalo, thanks for coming on in. Mr. Buckeye, Jared Jones, The Walking Geek. Stephen McNeely is in the house. Skull Ducky, LSU, Ryan Brooks, Bill G, Randy Taylor, Kerry Gold Nose, Yo, Khalib Ramirez, Joe Z, Matt Neeson, the Cyclone, Mr. Terrapin, JD Turtle, Mike Quinn is present. Jeff Fuller, always college football all day long. Absolutely, Mr. Fuller. Jim Reese, I am here. Greg, I am here as well. Jim. Cameron, B, Rock, Chalk, J, Hawk. Mr. Tungate is here. Sheep in Wolves Clothing. Bill G. Forticanes. Crab Cakes and Football. Another Terrapin is in the house. John Menser, Mr. Hurricane, Rock and Rant. Expedition Greg, Skull Ducky, David Hall, Chad Bracey is here. Holy smokes. A lot of people came at the start of the show, which is good because we've got a stacked show. Richard Brookins, Buckshot Kid is in the house. Stephen Vitt. Holy smokes. Benjamin Griffin, Kurt Searcy, Movie Time Blues. Even Tony Altamore is telling the ACC to settle. Holy smokes. I almost gave a shot, but I'm going to hold back. I'm trying to be nice. Tom Debate is in the house. Joaquin Morales, Brian A., Chief Fan, nobody in particular. Thundering is a word per stats and info. Okay? I might have used a real word early in my monologue. That's a good to know because I make up words, it seems like. Anybody else? Kirk Bender, N.E., Me versus Echo Chamber. You can't hide what you don't have. The Architect is here. Daniel is here. Brian A. Wendy Kosdras is here. I thought I heard the ACC lawyer. There were no minutes, only the document from the Virginia president. Maybe the minutes will be manufactured. Well, maybe I'm misrepresenting the latest article from Matt Baker. We're going to go through it, though, Wendy. I do believe there is some sort of secured box with the minutes, or possibly with the minutes. Maybe I'm misrepresenting the story, Wendy. We shall see. We shall see. David Montcastle, ESPN told the Big Ten to roll the dice, and they lost. Now they told Florida State to roll them, and they'll lose again. Holy smokes. Jay Chapman is in the house. Mr. Ed Wadner. None. Everybody's here. Holy smokes. Okay, so let's get to... I'm going to go through this article now. I'll get to the super chats as quick as I can and all those things. We're going to hit the main story first, since there's so many people here at the start of the show. Jeff Beaver is here. Talk fast. Well, we're going to hit the main story. We're going to hit the main story first. Well, we got two big stories, so it's and I've already cut out another big story, and I cut out the spotlight for Nebraska spring spot. I've cut out a whole bunch of stuff just not to have another 7-hour marathon show like we did yesterday. Okay, let's get to, man, I tell you, Matt Baker is he is unbelievable, to be honest. He has done an unbelievable job. The great Matt Baker. And I put the word great in when I believe a national or a reporter, a local national reporter has reached that level. The great Pete Thamel, the great Brett McMurphy, the great Ross Dellinger, the great Matt Baker. That is your Mount Rushmore thus far here at PATC, which ACC schools voted to sue Florida State. We're trying to find out. We're trying to find out. The intrigue on this, the cloak and dagger on this, I think, I got a feeling that PATC can connect the dots. Or I think we can really get close to connecting the dots. What we know and still want to know about the minutes from a special January 12th ACC meeting. Tallahassee, during Tuesday's hearing at Leon County Courthouse, Florida State's counsel dug into a subject that's either mind-numbingly boring or a crucial factor in the 9-figure lawsuits between the Seminoles and the ACC, or both. The minutes of a board meeting from 3 months ago. Where are they? Where are they? Florida State Attorney Peter Rush asked rhetorically. I don't even think it was rhetorically, but whatever. Where are they? Where are the minutes? Ah, man, guys and gals, I really think there's a reason. I don't want to jump ahead, but I can't, but I'm itching to. I'm itching to jump ahead. I'm doing all I can. The fat guy from Minnesota is trying to contain himself in this chair because I think we know why they're hiding the vote. Anyways, we'll get to it. The Tampa Bay Times has been wondering the same thing for weeks. The few public details of that special January 12th meeting when the ACC Board of Directors voted to sue Florida State have been tantalizingly vague. Remember, this was the amended complaint, not the initial lawsuit that happened December 21st. This is the amended complaint in where the ACC actually went through proper protocol according to the ACC bylaws, and they actually got the 3/4 vote to sue a current member of the conference. But Florida State wants to see the minutes. We want to see the vote. So where are they? After sending open records requests to most public schools in the ACC, here's our answer. In a read-only document stored, cloak and dagger, in a read-only document stored in a secured digital box and shared with a very small circle, a group that has not yet included Florida State. The ACC did not vote before filing its initial lawsuit against Florida State and North Carolina December 21st. We just went through that. That's not in dispute, no question about it. On Wednesday, January 10th, 2 days before the special meeting to vote on, to file that amended complaint, on Wednesday, January 10th, ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips emailed the school's presidents and chancellors that comprised the league's board of directors about a special meeting. It would continue the discussions we started on Tuesday regarding a conference legal matter. So, on Wednesday, Jim Phillips sends out an email. The day before, it sounds like, Tuesday, we're going to continue the discussions we started on a conference legal matter having to do with Florida State. The legal matter was not specified, but the board held its regular Zoom meeting a day earlier, Tuesday. Attorney James P. Cooney, who is representing the ACC in its litigation against Florida State, was invited. So were all 18 schools, including incoming members Cal, Stanford, and SMU. But Phillips only emailed 17 schools about this special January 12th meeting. Florida State was excluded. So somehow we got to all 18 schools were invited, but Florida State did not get the invite. The ACC has said the litigation creates a conflict of interest for the Seminoles. Phillips asked board members to waive the customary 3-day notice period for the meeting. He needed 3/4 to approve. He needed 3/4 of the members to approve. I support and will attend. Pitt Chancellor Joan Gable wrote. Joan Gable. That's a story for another day. I support and will attend. Joan Gable, who left the University of Minnesota to go to the University of Pittsburgh. That's the story for another day. She support and will attend. Joan Gable, by the way, the same person. Should I even go down this rabbit hole? The same person who said in public that she never even voted on the decision for the Big Ten during the COVID period. You know what? I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. But anyways, me too, replied Miami's president Julio Frank. The leaders of SMU, Georgia Tech, and Louisville also responded with a reply all affirmation, according to emails obtained from North Carolina State. It was a similar process 2 months later against Clemson. After the Tigers sued the ACC on March 19th, the commissioner's executive assistant sent the 16 current future members, no Florida State or Clemson, a link to the Doodle online scheduling service to set up a meeting that next morning. At least 8 schools responded: Miami, SMU, Wake Forest, Boston College, North Carolina State, Pittsburgh, Notre Dame, and Virginia. The 7:15 a.m. virtual meeting would address conference legal matters regarding challenges to the grant of rights. Video was not mandatory if the school's exec prefers not to be on that early. In court filings, the ACC has included a pair of sworn affidavits that mention the January 12th meeting. One from Deputy Commissioner Brad Hostetter and one from Virginia President Board Chairperson James E. Ryan. Ryan said the members voted unanimously to approve an amended lawsuit, including claims from the initial one in December. So all 12 that were there all voted for it. And you know what, guys and gals? I really don't think that's the story. I think some of these presidents of these universities who may potentially have a landing spot in the P2, I just don't think it served them probably to say, no, I'm not voting on it. I don't think that's the story. A couple months ago, yeah, but not now. I don't think that's the story. They're not hiding that. They're not hiding that. That's not why they're hiding. It's not about who voted for it. It's about the missing university. But who was present? Matt Baker, the Tampa Bay Times. Who was present? The participants weren't relevant to the vote, so they weren't included. That's Clemson. That's Florida State. After a question from the judge during Tuesday's hearing, Cooney, an attorney for the ACC, said 12 members were there. Florida State wasn't invited. Cooney said Clemson didn't participate. That leaves one unknown absence. Hostetler said in his affidavit that a pair of incoming non-voting members were there too. SMU said it would attend, which suggests either California or Stanford did not attend. So either California and Stanford decided not to show up for the vote on January 12th. Either Cal or Stanford, one of those two did not show up, and they're non-voting members anyways. And then there's a mystery school that did not show up. Okay? That is a voting member. Meeting minutes would clear this up. Hostetler said they were scheduled to be approved by the board on March 19th. 2 days later, the Times started asking for them. The Tampa Bay Times started asking for the minutes of this special meeting on January 12th that had 12 members who all voted to give the ACC the authority to file amended complaint against Florida State in Mecklenburg County. The secured box. The secured box. Whoops. Sorry, wrong story. I've got so many stories that I could go through tonight, but I won't. I can't. Don't have time. Secured box. The minutes exist. There's your answer, Wendy. And everybody else in the chat. The minutes exist. On February 15th, Hostetler emailed the presidents and chancellors of 17 schools, all current future members except Florida State, about them. He said minutes from the meetings on January 9th, 12th, and 23 were all initially reviewed by the board chairperson, the commissioner, and the conference general counsel. Perlin Hulk. Minor revisions followed according to emails obtained from Florida State. The minutes exist. Where are they? Why can't we see them? For the 14 current members, again, all but Florida State, Hostetler said the minutes were being shared in a new folder titled ACC Board of Directors. They would be separately invited to. This folder, he wrote, is necessary due to pending litigation. So what is that box folder? In response, denying the Times public records request for the minutes, the Tampa Bay Times is going all over the place. All these public institutions, FOIA requests. Georgia Tech described it as a secured box set up by the ACC that is not downloadable and provides view-only access to the board members. It's a standard process ACC schools agreed to and have used before this litigation. North Carolina denied the Times request for minutes in that box too, saying there are no existing or responsive university records subject to disclosure. Louisville and North Carolina State have not yet responded to requests from 3 weeks ago, and Cal has not responded to a follow-up email. 3 reasons why this matters. We're getting to the end here. And the last reason, well, I'm not going to spoil it. 3 reasons why this matters. Matt Baker, Tampa Bay Times. The first is broad. Public entities, not just Florida State and Clemson, had millions of dollars at stake. Decisions about the litigation were made up by the top executives at those public entities. There's a significant public interest in what happened on January 12th. Number 2, the second is technical. It involves a dispute over who sued whom first. The ACC argues that January 12th ratified the league's initial complaint against Florida State. If that's true, that's a compelling point that the ACC properly sued Florida State first. If it's not, that's a point in Florida State's favor. The difference is relevant as judges weigh whether the cases belong in ACC's home court, Florida State's home court, or both. The minutes could provide some clarity and inform future decisions and appeals. And finally, in this article, point number 3. The final point is pure intrigue. Cloak and dagger, cloak and dagger, cloak and dagger. The seismic impact of conference realignment leaves the industry searching for tea leaves to read. What other school missed the meeting when the ACC voted to sue one of its members? Did the school object because it's pursuing its own exit strategy, like Clemson and Florida State, or was it a routine scheduling conflict? The answers will come eventually. The notes likely will be turned over during the discovery process. For now, we're left wondering whether the minutes are mundane, monumental, or both. Ladies and gentlemen, we're all thinking the same thing. A lot of schools were mentioned, answering the emails, saying they're going to be there, present. But one school was not mentioned, North Carolina, UNC Chapel Hill, except for the fact that they didn't have any records when it come to the secured box that where the minutes are stored in a read-only format. We're all thinking North Carolina is that team that did not show up, the university that did not show up for either Florida State or Clemson to vote on, to get the 3/4 vote. There were 12 votes, and it's highly probable that North Carolina was the school that did not vote. That wasn't there. I wonder. It is, the Judge Cooper did ask, who are the members? Who are there to vote? Who are the 12? And they kind of listed some schools, whatever. There is no way. None. I'm sorry. There's no way the lawyer, Lawson or the other guy that did most of the talking, there's no way they don't know what school that was that wasn't there to vote. They didn't even want to utter the name North Carolina. Now, is this yes, basically all of it is speculation on my part. But come on. If it was anybody else, they would have said, yeah, Wake Forest couldn't make it there. Syracuse couldn't make it there. Virginia president, he had a scheduling thing, but we knew we had 12 votes. Miami, nah. They didn't even want to say, the lawyer didn't even want to tell the judge it was North Carolina. Also, remember, this was January 12th. January 12th, the special meeting. Keep that date in mind. And if you've been a Cloak and Dagger member of our show, you've been watching my episodes in regards to the powers that are stripped, let's take a look at something. And hopefully it doesn't take me all day to find it. Remember this now. This was amended on January 25th, 2024. 13 days after the special vote, which I believe, and I got a feeling that a lot of you probably agree. 13 days after, it's highly probable that North Carolina did not show up for that vote to sue Florida State, to give the rights to sue Florida State. This was amended January 25th, 2024. The UNC policy. Now, this is not just UNC Chapel Hill policy. This is UNC system, the 17 public universities. So, this also looks over North Carolina State as well. Keep that in mind. By virtue of GS 116-3, the capacity and authority to initiate litigation as well as settle potential and pending litigation in the name of the university on behalf of the constituent and affiliated institution lies exclusively with the Board of Governors, which is that 24-member body. Peter Hans is the president. Ramsey is the chairman. A constituent and affiliated institution has no independent capacity or authority to initiate litigation or settle potential or pretending litigation in its name or in the name of the University of North Carolina. Now, I don't think that involves this. I knew that was going to be a question because it's the ACC initiating the lawsuit. Because I've been hitting this home hard when it comes to conference affiliation and North Carolina, Chapel Hill being able to instigate litigation towards the ACC. They're not going to be able to do that. The Board of Governors has to initiate it. In other words, the Board of Trustees at North Carolina had been stripped of so many of their powers. Not just that, but other things that I went over in an episode, Early Peak Cloak and Dagger for members episode early this morning. This is where I come down on this. I think it's real obvious. Again, do I have my eyeballs on that read-only document in the secured box? The minutes? No, I don't. But I think it doesn't take much to get there that North Carolina is the missing school that did not show up. And the question is, are they planning? Is the reason why they never showed up for Florida State? That was the Florida State thing. They never showed up for the Clemson stuff. is because they're planning their own litigation against the ACC? Why, if they are planning their own litigation against the ACC, if that's the reason why they're not showing up, if that's the reason the ACC lawyer didn't even want to say the name North Carolina to the judge, when the judge asked who was there, he could have said everybody but Clemson, Florida State, and North Carolina. If North Carolina is planning litigation, if they're down that road to the point where they're not even showing up for these meetings, well, it's happening at the Board of Governors level. The state of North Carolina. Just going to bring that up again. So, intrigue, the final point is pure intrigue. It's a big point. What other school missed the meeting when the ACC voted to sue one of its members? Did the school object because it's pursuing its own exit strategy, or was it a routine scheduling conflict? I'm not buying that routine scheduling conflict. I mean, you can go and vote, and you can vote no. But they didn't even do that. Whatever missing school this is, they didn't even do that. The answer will come eventually. The answer's known. I mean, it's not known by us, but it's out. They know it. The judge asked for it, and the lawyer has to know it, but he didn't want to say it in public. Why don't you want to say North Carolina did not show up for the vote in public? Because I think it would be such a psychological change in everything if these lawyers keep talking about how it was North Carolina who wasn't one of the 12 who cast the vote. Wasn't one of the 12 schools that cast the vote against Florida State to sue Florida State. Wasn't one of the 12 schools that sued Clemson. North Carolina is the answer. North Carolina is the answer. North Carolina's not even showing up for the meetings. North Carolina, you can't even say it when the judge asks you and you know the answer during a live stream when we're all watching. And if they all believe that North Carolina is ready to initiate litigation, or they've gone down that road, well, then it's the Board of Governors that are doing it. And there's a high probability that's going to involve North Carolina State. So I wanted to put that out there. We've got another, let that percolate for a while. ACC is hiding the vote. It's going to have to come out eventually. Matt Baker should have been able to get that information in a FOIA request easily. Already, crab cakes in football, vote never happened. It happened. But talking about hiding the vote, the ACC is hiding the vote, not because of who voted on it. It's about who didn't vote. That's what they're hiding. Because it would be such a psychological blow. Even before North Carolina went to the courts, before the Board of Governors initiated a lawsuit, they don't want it. They don't want that out. That is my take on it here at Peek Around the Corner. Thank you for the super chat. Thank you for your generosity. Crab, cakes, and football. I appreciate it. Then, let's move on. Okay, hold on, everybody. Hold on, 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 hold on. I don't know what's going on here. Yeah. Okay. So now let's get to the grant of rights. And again, the great Doug Rohan is going to be on the Big 12 Mafia show. So you want to watch Big 12 Mafia, Doug Rohan is going to be on there. I am just going to skim through this because, again, unfortunately, your host is not the brightest bulb in the fridge. But I can tell you, all these years, what we all believe the grant of rights was all about when it comes to conferences and their media partners. Rohan put out a post earlier today. Here is the unsigned 2013 grant of rights that is publicly available on the internet. We're going to show it to you. I just want to show you what Doug Rohan said. So you have that percolating in your mind when I show you the grant of rights. Very short, 4 pages, the grant of rights. Okay? But I want you all to have this percolating in your mind when we're looking at the grant of rights. Rohan, here is the unsigned 2013 grant of rights that's publicly available on the internet. This is the initial Gore through 2027. 2013, 2027. An extension was secured by the ACC from all members institutions in 2036. Nothing changed other than the good through date to 2036. Of note, Florida State was the last to sign and did so several days after the other members. Read into that what you wish. They did some arm twisting on Florida State to get them to sign. Nevertheless, it was executed. Have this issue come up today? Thanks to @D, the ACC die. It is my first time looking at this since the Clemson University lawsuit was filed. Doug Rohan says, I'm changing my mind. I now agree partially with Clemson's interpretation. The ACC Gore is based entirely on the ACC's deal with ESPN and cannot exist as a valid, binding agreement without ESPN's media rights agreement. Now, oh boy, we always, not just me, but everybody basically in the industry knew it. Gore was created when the media package was created, like offered, and it was always the last hurdle to jump to get the deal done. In other words, the conference would negotiate for the schools, and if a deal was struck with the media partners, part of that, the schools knew that they would have to hand over their rights to the conference because that's what the media partner would want to have stability. So it was always connected to the contract. But this might be going a step further. They might have. The ACC and the ESPN might have screwed up in the language of this. The ACC Gore is based entirely on the ACC's deal with ESPN and cannot exist as a valid, binding agreement without ESPN's media rights agreement. So if that ESPN media rights agreement has some language in there that says, when a school leaves a conference, our contract, we don't have distribution rights with that school. Now, we always figured they would still have those distribution rights. And ESPN would pay ACC to show Florida State home games wherever they go, wherever Florida State does, independent or go to another conference, and then ACC would pocket the money and distribute the money per the ACC bylaws to the other schools, because a withdrawal member does not get any revenue from the ACC. That is in the ACC bylaw. I'll show that to you in a little bit. So we always thought, everybody always thought, that even if Florida State left the conference, that ESPN would still distribute that Florida State home games, and then the money would continue to go to the ACC. But there may be some language in that media rights agreement that Clemson is saying there is, Florida State's saying there is, that says, if they leave, suddenly there is no relationship between ESPN and Florida State. Back to Doug Rohan. The ACC Gore is based entirely on the ACC's deal with ESPN and cannot exist as a valid binding agreement without ESPN media rights agreement. The entire first paragraph of the grant of rights mentions ESPN 9 times and makes no mention of any other potential media partners. You see, it's a great point. The grant of rights was made at the request of ESPN, which that is not unusual. For the benefit of ESPN, that's not unusual. And in conjunction with ESPN, paragraph 7 mentions access to campus facilities for ESPN to create the ACC network. That was the considerations back to the schools when they signed the extended grant of rights. Not for any ACC affiliated media partners. Any agreement designed to contemplate an existence beyond any ESPN media deal would, should, and have said after every mention of ESPN. Or any other media partner with whom ACC signs a material media rights agreement on the conclusion of the ESPN agreement. But the Gore did not say that. The Gore conclusively requires the existence of an ESPN agreement for it to exist. Again, not too unusual. I apologize to those I am maligned or suggested otherwise. Of note, I am not a judge. My opinion on this matter carries no weight, but a simple reading of the plain meaning of the Gore confirms to me that if ESPN exercises its option before February 2025 for the years 27 to 36, the Gore has value as alleged by Florida State totaling $542 million. In the event ESPN does not exercise its option to extend the ACC media rights deal, the Gore ceases to have any value and is unenforceable. I disagree with Clemson that the member has the right to withdraw and sever the Gore. This event is contemplated in the contract by saying, regardless of whether such a member institution remains a member of the conference during the entirety of the term. Okay, so then if you look at the grant of rights, and again, I know it's hard to see. I'm not going to go ahead and read this. I'm just going to show it. The Atlantic, well, I'll go a little bit through it. The Atlantic Coast Conference Grant of Rights Agreement is executed on blah, 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 2013. Whereas the execution delivery of this agreement enhances the stability of the conference membership. The grant of rights, each member institution hereby irrevocably and exclusively grants to the conference during the term all rights necessary for the conference to perform the contractual obligations of the conference expressly set forth in the ESPN agreement. This is the major point that I wanted to get to. This is what JD, Mr. Seminole, talks a lot when he calls in. Each of the member hereby is granting their rights to the conference, necessary for the conference to perform the contractual obligations of the conference expressly set forth in the ESPN agreement. So for me, when I read that, regardless of whether such a member institution remains a member of the conference during the entirety of the term, agrees to satisfy and perform all contractual obligations of a member institution. For me, in some ways, this reads as how the ACC would want it to read. Whether such a member institution remains a member of the conference, regardless of whether such a member, right? But I gotta say, let me pop up this a little bit more so people can read that. Even during that case in Leon County, and I know the lawyer of ACC might have misspoke. He might have misspoke a couple times. At one point, he said, when he's trying to explain to Judge Cooper, he said, the lawyer of ACC said, yeah, if Florida State leaves the conference, we would still get money, revenue from ESPN. We would share it throughout the schools. But he also said something to the effect of ESPN would no longer, he said, I'm paraphrasing, but he said they would no longer be showing Florida State's games. Like Judge Cooper and the lawyer went back and forth on it. And the lawyer basically said, yeah, Florida State we control, the ACC would still control Florida State's rights, but it may not be ESPN that would be showing Florida State's home games. He said that. The lawyer said that. And I'm not sure he wanted to say that. If he's saying that and that's the truth, that's the argument that Clemson is making. You see, again, I know I'm confusing people. So I'm going to just tell you, this is the traditional, old school, maybe I'm completely wrong, but I don't think I am. This is how the grant of rights is supposed to set up. A conference is initiating with media partners. The media partners know basically that they're going to get a grant of rights out of this, that the conference is going to have the ownership of every school's grant of rights. They're going to have their rights, their media rights, to give stability to the media partner or media partners. But in this agreement, back and forth, it doesn't hold. I'm talking traditionally here, okay? I'm not saying what's all this. I'm saying traditionally. It doesn't keep a school from leaving. It just keeps the school, the grant of right, keeps the school from leaving and not having any value for anybody else, including its own school. What would happen traditionally, as everybody believed what the gore is if Florida State leaves, that ESPN would continue to distribute their games. That's part of the media contract. It's not just with the conference, it's with the schools. The money, ESPN hands over the money to the ACC, not to the school, not to Florida State, not to Clemson, Wake Forest, Syracuse. They always hand the money over to the conference. But if Florida State would leave, the thought would always be that ESPN would still do their home games. They'd still grab that advertising money. And then that money would go to the ACC and it'd be distributed to the other schools, not to Florida State, because a withdrawal member doesn't get revenue. And of course, I can't find that. But trust me, and a withdrawal member, I'll look for it later. I'll find it later. A withdrawal member, I showed it last night. A withdrawal member doesn't get revenue from the conference. So, Clemson argument is, now if we leave the conference, according to that ESPN media agreement, ESPN is no longer distributes our content. And thus far, and then the ACC doesn't own our rights because we have no more media contract with ESPN. And the lawyer of ACC, I think he kind of said that. I think he kind of confirmed what Clemson's been saying, in my mind. That's what I heard. That's why I screamed in the microphone when it happened. And people told me to shut up. We want to hear the lawyer. We want to hear the judge. So I don't know. Okay, so ultimately, ladies and gentlemen, let's say this. Rohan might be 100% correct. It says whether or not the school is a member of the conference. True. But we have to see that media agreement between the ACC and ESPN. Is there some language in there that ESPN says, if they leave the conference, we're not showing their games? Because that's not how it's always been understood in the past. The media partner would still show the games. So we need to see that media agreement, which, by the way, ESPN and ACC are protecting that agreement. Which, why I believe one of the biggest points of what happened in Leon County, was when Judge Cooper gave an offhand comment. Well, not offhand. When he said, state of Florida, sunshine laws. He goes, I don't know any public university, any public agency, any government agency, any Florida entity at all that has a contract with somebody in which that contract is not out there in the open. I'm saying it in layman's terms. So I think maybe that was the biggest point of the whole thing, because if anything's going to push the ACC to the negotiation table, I think it's the unveiling of the entire 160 pages, completely no redaction at all, of the media agreement between Florida State, ACC and ESPN. Okay, I'm going to open up the phone lines, and you guys can tell me how screwed up I am, but I don't think I am. In other words, my answer on the grant of rights is I don't know. I can see I can start to see a little bit of the argument that Clemson and Clemson and Florida State are making. I can see it potentially being that way, but I got to see that media rights agreement. Hold on, everybody. Interesting. Okay, we'll get to that later. Okay, the line is open, 763-260.
Call from
Rock and Rant.
Rock and Rant. The floor is yours. How are you doing, sir?
I'm good. I'm sure, like everybody else, everyone's heads are imploding with all of the legalese that we're all suffering through over the last couple of days. So before I just kind of comment real quick, I think everything you said is most likely the scenarios that are playing out. So I'm not here to dispute that. I'm not here to defend a vote or not a vote or anything like that. But I did want to clarify that there is possibly, if you look at the bylaws, and even when lawyers use words or omit words, you always have to wonder, do they intentionally use them or intentionally omit them? But just for clarification, there is a scenario from ACC bylaws that is a little bit different. They absolutely need 3/4 of the membership, the voting membership, I'm going to be specific, to rush a meeting outside of the 72-hour rule, for sure. That does not necessarily mean, so let's just say there's 12 in that specific case looking at the article. That doesn't necessarily mean that all of those members showed up to do a vote, right? It also doesn't mean, in theory, and I'm not saying this is what happened, I'm just using it for theoreticals, that a member that didn't vote to rush the meeting couldn't also then show up, like North Carolina. Again, I don't think that's what happened, just using that as an example. Mm-hmm. Vast majority of things in the ACC bylaws require 2/3 quorum, including, I believe, votes around lawsuits and stuff like that. And then depending upon the actual situation, you either need a firm 2/3 vote of the entire membership, regardless of quorum, or 2/3 of the quorum. So all of that gobbledygook to say it's entirely possible that when they're referring to a unanimous vote, that it could have been as little as 10 members that actually showed up for the meeting and all 10 voted to proceed, as an example.
Possibly, but the lawyer did say.
The lawyer said 12 members.
12, all
right?
12, unanimous.
He said, no, I thought he said 12 members. He didn't, which, since they're also alluding to non-voting members, 2 of them showing up, I would love to know if he meant specifically when he said 12 members, since he also botched a couple of other things. Did he mean 12 voting members showed up, in which case then yes, 100%, 12 of them voted if he's conveying everything accurately? Or did, when he say 12 members, was that specifically to say, well, there was 10, all types of members, 10 voting members were there and 2 non-voting members were there, or 11 and 1? It's probably 12 voting members were there. I'm just throwing out
I understand.
anything.
Yep.
Just because I read the article 4 times over to see that, because then the next part of the Matt's article does talk about of members present, right? So then I'm just diving into the wordsmithing. Most humans would think 12, them saying 12 members would mean actual voting members, but they're lawyers too. And sometimes I'm just curious, but 90% or even greater, what your scenario is probably what happened. Mm-hmm. But just from like a technical thing for the future, they don't need 3/4 of the members to vote for anything in terms of suing anything. They need at least, most likely 10 when quorum is present of 2/3, regardless of a rush to vote scenario. So if it comes down to the future, that was it. Like, I'm not really arguing anything, and I
understand. Yep.
Necessarily say that. But I am curious, because as lawyers, when they said 12, did they mean 12 voting members? So that was the case, and you have 12, in which case we can pretty much guess the suspects. Or is there a wiggle room that there are theoretically 1 or 2 other people who didn't vote for it, didn't show up for the meeting? Don't think that's the case. Not proposing that that's definitely happening, because I have no idea whatsoever. I just wanted to clarify from my reading and understanding of the bylaws.
Yep, no problem. I got it. I appreciate it, Rock and Rant.
Let's see what Doug says tonight. I definitely have that question for him too.
You got it. I appreciate it, sir.
All right, Greg. Have a great
you too. Great call by Rock and Rant, Mr. Hurricane. This is the ACC bylaws that I was trying to find earlier. And I'm going to skip to the second paragraph. 1.4.5, withdrawal of members. Upon official notice of withdrawal, the member will be subject to withdrawal payment as liquidated damages in an amount equal to 3 times the total operating budget of the conference. Now that's the $130 to $140 million that keeps being said in the court, and the lawyers said it. ACC lawyers said it, between 130 and 140. Okay, the conference may offset the amount of such payment against any distribution otherwise due to the members. So instead of saying, hey, you have to give us $130, $140 million at the moment of withdrawal, you could give us $80 million and then we'll just keep, 50 to 60 million that's supposed to go to you here in the next calendar year, fiscal year. They could do that as well. They could just keep it from you. A combination of a school writing a check and offsetting the payment distribution otherwise due to the member. Okay, any remaining amount due shall be paid by the withdrawing member within 30 days of the effective date of the withdrawal. The withdrawing member shall have no claim on the assets, accounts, or income of the conference. So, if, again, traditionally, it was always thought upon that, let's say Florida State says, I'm out of here, we're gone, that ESPN would continue to distribute their games. And the ACC would continue to have their rights. In other words, the money would go to the ACC and ESPN would keep showing their games. I think there's Clemson believes they have a case to be made. So does Florida State. That there's something in that media agreement in which ESPN dissolves themselves automatically of distributing Clemson's and Florida State's games. And therefore, according to Clemson and Florida State, if you go back to the top here, hold on everybody, I do apologize. Hold on. If you go back to the top here, each of the member exclusive grants to the conference during the term necessary for the conference to perform the contractual obligations of the conference expressly set forth in the ESPN agreement, regardless of whether such a member institution remains a member of the conference, which is pro-ACC and pro-ESPN. And B, agrees to satisfy and perform all contractual obligations of a member institution during the term that expressly set forth in the ESPN agreement. So I believe each of the members' institutions irrevocably and exclusively grants to the conference during the term all rights necessary for the conference to perform the contractual obligations of the conference expressly set forth in the ESPN agreement. Set forth in the ESPN agreement. Set forth in here, the ESPN agreement. Necessary for the conference to perform in the ESPN agreement. So on the if again, I'm going to go back to it. The lawyer of the ACC said in Leon County. Now, maybe he doesn't know what the heck he's talking about. But he did say, when going back and forth with the judge, he said, yeah, Florida State leaves. They're not... ESPN would no longer do their games. He says, I don't know who would do their games. Well, if ESPN's not doing their games, then there's no more contractual obligations. And so, and thus, the grant of rights Clemson would have no more obligations inside the grant of rights of the ACC. I believe that's what, and I know JD is out there. If he's watching, he's going, Greg, I've been telling you this for weeks. And so has other Seminoles. But again, traditionally, this wouldn't fly because it wouldn't matter. But again, the lawyer in Leon County, ACC, said, no, the ESPN won't have their games. Well, if that's the truth, then that means Clemson's been telling the truth. That means Florida State's been telling the truth. And there might be a way out of this. I need somebody to call me and tell me, Greg, you're crazy. You're absolutely nuts. Give me a call. Tell me I'm nuts. 763-260-1333. Again, look, we're going to need to see. We're going to need to see that media rights agreement. And on the first story that we did, Matt Baker. Which ACC schools voted to sue Florida State? We're trying to find out. We went through that whole article. There's a link in the description box. You can read the whole thing. But there's one school that did not show up for any of this stuff. Did the school object because it's pursuing its own exit strategy? Or was it a routine scheduling conflict? And I think most of us believe it was North Carolina. Lots of intrigue. April 10th.
Call from
JD.
JD, thank you. I appreciate you calling. You're probably throwing things at the wall right now. You're probably screaming Flugar is an idiot. I've been telling.
Yeah.
But again, JD, even though I'm an idiot, I've got to see that ESPN agreement with ACC.
Well, here's the deal.
Yeah.
We don't necessarily have to see it because what has been explained to us, and I keep referring to the insiders like Regal Knoll, and there's other ones and so on. They remind us FSU's not under contract. They're not under contract with ESPN. There's no contract between ESPN and the schools. It's just between ESPN and the ACC. And I realized something today. See, Doug Rohan, that response he made,
yeah,
I think was in response to some interaction he and I had a little earlier than that on Twitter. And he's awesome. And he responds to all of us, and he's great. But I disagreed with him just a little bit, and he did what a good lawyer should do. He went back and looked at the grant of rights. And then he posted that probably, 30, 45 minutes later, I happened to notice.
Yeah, I got up on the board right here. Yeah.
And it's just, and it goes to show what we believe about the grant of rights isn't reality.
Well,
ESPN,
it might be just this grant of rights. I don't know if we can.
I'm talking about this grant of rights.
Yeah. You might be right about all of them, but right. I think we should at least keep it to this one because.
What the ACC has been telling us isn't the case. And, I had one other thing that I was watching an episode that Doug was on with TJ on the Double Fries No Slaw podcast earlier today. And that's usually pretty brief, only 10 or 20 minutes, here or there. But and when he was talking about, the ruling and some of the cases that Judge Cooper was referencing, it hit me. This isn't a contract case. This isn't about contracts. This is an intellectual property law case. That's what this is. The judge knows that. The judge, you go back and you think about it, all the cases that he was referencing in his ruling had to do with intellectual property law. He knows. He's going to let all the lawyers, plead their case. I think he already knows how he's going to rule. I think he knows this backwards and forwards. This is not a contract case. It is an intellectual property law case. So, what did the ACC do? Because I've had some experience. I filed patents and I've had a little experience in this. What did the ACC do when they established the grant of rights? They claimed things they didn't have the rights to claim. They claimed that they owned the rights for FSU, even or any ACC member, even when they were a non-member in the future. But by law, because they're not contractually obligated to ESPN, then that bond is broken.
Okay, but let me say something. Traditionally, now I'm talking traditionally. Okay.
Sure.
The media partner wants the grant of rights because the media partner wants to be protected. That they're going to hold this much value, they perceived value, for so many years. Remember that the ESPN makes their money by selling ads, right? Certain ad rates, right? Certain cities, certain markets. This is what they perceive. This is what they're willing to pay the ACC, knowing that they're going to have distribution rights to all these schools.
Yes.
Traditionally, there is in that media agreement, there would be an agreement between Florida State and ESPN.
Traditionally, yes.
I can tell you, everybody.
No.
Everybody. Well, I haven't seen the media agreement. Everybody in the Big Ten. Everybody in the Big Ten. I'm not going to say the SEC because it's ESPN. I don't know what language ESPN is used, but everybody in the Big Ten would perceive, because I've been talking to people about this for a couple months. But if Michigan would leave, if Michigan was so upset with Tony Petitti, right? Had these discussions, so upset that their coach got a 3-game. They're out of there. They're leaving the Big Ten. Remember all that talk? Yeah, they can leave.
Sure.
They can leave. But Fox is still going to distribute their games. And the money's coming to the Big Ten. And that makes it inconceivable that Michigan would leave. Traditionally, that's what the grant of rights does. Protects the media partner, protects the conference. And you increase the value of the entire conference because you gave value of stability to the media partner. But JD, you've been raising a great point. When I read this grant of rights, why does it say each member institutions hereby irrevocably and exclusively grant to the conference during the term all rights necessary for the conference to perform the contractual obligations of the conference expressly set forth in the ESPN agreement? Clemson
Because
says,
go ahead.
and then it says, regardless of whether such a member institution remains a member of the conference during the entirety of the term. That is, regardless of whether such a member institution remains a member of the conference, that is in every single gore. That's what protects the media partner and the conference. The conference is going to keep getting the money. ESPN is going to keep getting paid by their ad, whatever. Okay? So that's always in there. And so the ACC keeps referencing that part. Agreement, regardless of whether such a member institution remains. But before that, it said necessary for the conference to perform the contractual obligations of the conference. It's expressly set forth in the ESPN agreement. Clemson says we need to see the ESPN media agreement. We need to see it. And if you see it, there's plain language that if you tie it in to that first part of that grant of rights, necessary for the conference to perform. I'm pointing to it like people can see me. The Clemson says necessary for the conference to perform the contractual obligations of the conference expressly set forth in ESPN. Clemson went at that like a laser beam and said, if you tie that with what it says in the media agreement, voila, the case is made. If we leave, we don't have any more contractual obligations to ESPN. Now, this whole time I'd be saying, well, why would that be in the media agreement? They must have screwed up, and that's the only conclusion I can come to if Clemson's correct. But that lawyer, JD, that lawyer of the ACC, did say ESPN would no longer distribute Florida State's game if Florida State left. And I screamed in the studio. And I said, if that's true, then Clemson and Florida State are going to win this thing. But we need to see that media agreement.
He was also claiming that they would still own the rights and they could sell them, and that's not true. The grant of rights is for this specific contract. That is, I mean, you just read it. It is to perform the duties to that specific contract.
Well, it says,
it's not a general, I'm selling my rights to you to market them. No, it's
you're right.
to perform the duties to this specific contract. That's the fatal.
You're correct.
That's the fatal flaw. Other grant of rights between like music companies and artists and so on, those are direct contracts.
And those would say, but if you go and potentially sign up with another media music thing, then it would say, but we still own your rights.
Yes, but there's also a contract between them. And see the issue, and this is where the ACC screwed up. They didn't put their member institutions under contract. All they did was sign the grant of rights. The contract's between the ACC and ESPN. It's not between the schools and ESPN, and that's the flaw. I could say to you, Greg, I'm putting you under contract. And you've granted your rights to your show to me till 2050, okay?
Yeah.
But if there's no contract to back it up, the rights are worthless. It's just a piece of paper. The rights have to be representative of some equal trade. And when you're not in a contractual agreement or you're not in an obligation, it doesn't matter what it says. You know, when I filed patents in the past, you claim the world, man. You claim everything. You claim things that there's no way in the world that they're going to agree to or whatever, because you hope you get something a little extra. You get a little extra meat in there, and I mean you just fill it up sometimes. But what the ACC did, and I think they knew this all along. See, I think to keep the schools in check, they told the schools, hey, you're obligated to us till 2036, even if you leave the conference. Even though they knew that might be unenforceable, but they claimed it anyway. And guess what? Who was their media partner? ESPN. What did ESPN do? They wrote the articles. The schools are obligated till 2036. So a lot of the meat in the gore was just fear tactics and basically false reporting. And I say false reporting. I mean, the journalists, they don't know any better. They're not lawyers. And because nobody's challenged the grant of rights in the past, other lawyers are saying, oh, yeah, well, it's ironclad. It's ironclad if you're an ACC member. But if you're not an ACC member and the ESPN contract does not apply to you, I think we're going to find out the grant of rights is worthless. I still think there's a chance, the departing schools pay a little something, but I don't know. I mean, there are some of these insiders that are suggesting that FSU will declare.
This is fascinating. Okay, everybody, hold on. Can you see a screen? Can you see?
I'm just on the phone. I'm not looking.
Oh, shoot.
Looking.
Okay, everybody, I need everybody. Look, chat room. Hold on. Christopher Counts is telling everybody, hang on. Forget about your Miami talk and your Missouri, Texas A&M. I need you all to focus here. I need everybody to focus. Honestly, focus. JD, you got a moment here?
Sure.
I want to talk to you. I just saw something. Focus. I'm yelling at people now. Okay, we're focused. Locked in. The architect. Brother Monsoon, Stephen Vitt, hidden Hawaii. Okay, listen to me. Now listen. Do you remember when JD and everybody in the chat, when everybody said, including myself, I said the ACC Gores has teeth, blah, 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 blah. And one of the reasons it has teeth is because they copied the grant of rights from the Big 12. You remember that?
Yes.
They copied the grant of rights from the Big 12. Well, I'm looking at the Big 12 grant of rights, and it ain't the same thing. Let's look at this. I wish you could see this on the screen. Watch it back, JD, when you get a chance. Okay. I mean, the first part of the Atlantic Coast Conference Grant of Rights Agreement lists the names of the school. It'd be better if I would have it on picture here. Okay, now I'm going to show you the Big 12 grant of rights. Chat room, I need you to focus. Here's the Big 12. They list the schools.
I'm going to pull out my iPad and see if I can pull you up. But anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay. Now, okay. Is everybody still with me here? I gotta check out the chat. Wow, just wow. Okay, I haven't shown it yet. Just hold on here. The first part of this is the same. Okay, I'm going to read you the ACC grant of rights. Each of the member institutions hereby irrevocably and exclusively grants to the conference during the term all rights necessary for the conference to perform the contractual obligations of the conference expressly set forth in the ESPN agreement, regardless of whether such a member institution remains a member of the conference during the entirety of the term. The Big 12 says the grant of rights, each of the member institutions irrevocably grants to the conference during the term all rights necessary for the conference to perform the contractual obligations of the conference expressly set forth in telecast rights agreements, regardless of whether such a member institution remains a member of the conference during the entirety of the term. Subject to right to access member institution facilities for the purpose set forth pursuant. Telecast rights agreements. So it's a lot more general in the Big 12.
The grant of rights is just an assignment of rights. And again, I'm being redundant here. If there's no contract to back it up, there are no rights. And because FSU is not contractually obligated to the contract, if they become a non-member, there's nothing to bind them to the deal. They're out of the arrangement because they're not contractually obligated to stay in it. The the ACC gives them a method to leave the conference. I don't know if that was the case in the Big 12 or not, whether there was a buyout, provision. You still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. Go ahead.
I mean, it was just either it was a fatal flaw, and they just assumed it would carry through, or again, like I said, it's an intellectual property. It was just they scammed them. I don't know. Maybe there's a better way I could phrase it. You claim that you can't get out, but realistically, they can't enforce their claims because there's no basis to it. But they scared people half to death that they'll be obligated for 12 to 15 years or whenever it was that universities were looking to leave, that they're not going to make any money for 12 years. And, the ACC is going to have all their rights and they're going to be in limbo. And when you have other attorneys that are looking at it and saying, it looks ironclad, but obviously they weren't taking into consideration, can those rights transfer to non-members? And I think the answer is no. And the more lawyers are look at Doug.
Well, it does say regardless of whether such a member institution remains a member of the conference.
But it doesn't matter what the ACC says when they can't legally do it. There's no legal basis for them to do it because there's no contract to bind them to it. There's no contract to bind them to. Everybody get, and I'm not upset with you.
No, I know. No. Go ahead. I'm just saying.
I get.
You are signing a grant of rights, though. But I understand what you're saying.
But the grant of rights are for that to perform in that specific contract. Okay.
Yeah. In the Big 12 isn't as specific. So the main like the Big 12 is necessary for the conference to perform the contractual obligations of the conference expressly set forth in the telecast rights agreement, regardless of whether such a member institution remains a member of the conference during the entirety of the term. It all gets back to that media rights agreement, though, because in that media rights agreement, if it does explicitly say, we have the distribution rights to the school regardless. We don't know what it says. That's the problem.
Where everybody gets confused is they think the grant of rights is a separate contract, and it's not. And what they are confused about is they think the ACC schools granted their rights to the ACC for the full length of the term, regardless.
Well, it is a separate signature.
Well, it is,
it's a separate contract.
But they are giving them their rights to perform under the ACC ESPN contract. But what I'm saying is people still believe that the ACC school granted the rights to the ACC regardless of whatever media contract, and that's not the case. They granted their rights for this specific contract. Okay?
Yeah.
So let's just make this real simple. If, let's just say, this media contract didn't exist, would there be anything to grant? I mean, would there even be the grant of rights? Would it even be valid anymore? And I think you said earlier, I kind of came in a little bit late, but I thought you said the answer was no, which you would be correct. Okay? So if a member institution isn't a part of the ACC and they're not bound to that contract anyway, it doesn't matter what the grant of rights claims. There's nothing to enforce. And I may not have explained that the best way.
Yeah,
but
I want to get back to something here. I understand what you're saying. But right here, and again, I'm going to go back. It depends on what the ESPN agreement says. Because Clemson, to be fair, Clemson and Florida State are not saying, oh, look at the grant of rights, we're gone. They're saying, no, look at the media rights agreement with the grant of rights. Yeah. And by the way, nobody can see this, the part because it's a trade secret. So here it says, the grant of rights pursuant to this paragraph 1 includes, without limitation, the grant of rights pursuant to this paragraph 1 includes, without limitation, the right to produce and distribute all events of such member institution that are subject to the ESPN agreement.
Member institutions.
Yes. Well, before that, it said regardless of whether a member institution remains a member. They're not going to keep saying member or not, or I don't think.
I don't know if you remember yesterday that one of the FSU lawyers was up there and he was talking about Carolyn Egan when she was, she's legal counsel, chief legal counsel. I forgot her title. I know she's vice president, but she's also the chief legal counsel for Florida State. And anyway, when she was up in Charlotte viewing, and they referenced the things that Clemson was referenced that she was reading, and somebody had posted it somewhere. I'd have to go find it, but it was referencing the fact of, and I'm paraphrasing here, that the ESPN doesn't apply to former members or no universities that aren't members of the ACC. And somebody had posted that, but it's in the transcript. And if you go back and you look at it or listen to it, I'm sure you'll hear it. But that was during the time period where they were talking about that the ACC representatives were in the room. Anytime a university representative goes up to Charlotte, or used to be and wherever it was before, was it Greensboro? But anyway, to view the ACC contract, they're sitting in the room with you.
Yeah. And
they're paying attention to whether or not how closely you're viewing the contract.
And Yeah, yeah.
And so if but so if you remember that part of his, whenever he was taking his first speaking to the judge, if you remember that part, you probably find it. I'm going to probably try to go back and view it and see if I can and locate it. That way, I'll write it down verbatim what he was saying. But anyway. But they had referenced that, and I'm sorry I kind of took the long way around to get to that point. But anyway, yeah, I just, the only reason I'm knowledgeable about this is on the FSU message boards. We've been looking at the grant of rights for years. I mean, we've been, there's people with inside knowledge of the ESPN contracts.
That Regal Knoll, but people have sent me over the last few years Regal Knoll, and he at one point he said that ESPN owns the grant of rights. He repeated that over and over again. That's just not true.
They purchased the rights from.
They purchased the distribution rights,
they purchased the distribution rights.
But he kept
so
saying,
there were some other options that he threw out there.
Yeah.
But you have to know where his connections are. You have a lot of people with connections in the media.
Yeah.
Does he have connections in the media? Yes, but he has connections at the networks. He's known about the 2021 option. He told members on the thread about the 2020 option in 2021. I mean, he's talked to us about these things, and I'm kind of a newbie. I only got involved in the whole realignment thing in 2022. Well, late 2021, early 2022. But they've talked about this stuff for years. But some of these insiders, they'll suggest that not only is ESPN not renewing the option, they've already told the ACC they're not renewing the option. The question is whether the ACC has told their members that. I don't know if it'll be something where they grant them a little bit of an extension, but under this current arrangement, they're not going to 2036. But everything I've seen leads me to believe what you and I talked about a week and a half ago. All this is happening, not necessarily the court case, but all this realignment is happening because the networks want it. They could have shut it down. They want these schools to move. They want the brand schools to move to better conferences because they get better matchups. It's more profitable. If FSU was on a yearly basis, FSU would be playing Penn State or Ohio State or Michigan or whatever. I mean, those are going to be what, 9-10 million viewership?
Yeah.
Maybe not as quite as high as when FSU plays Minnesota. That might be 20 million, but you never know.
Sure.
But it's a reorganization of college football to a more profitable model. And I could tell you some other things about the message board threads and things that are set on there and why they're set on there, because there's a lot of people that view them that aren't FSU fans. Yeah. And there's information put out there for SEC people, for ACC, for Big Ten, for conference members and commissioners and whatever. They've all viewed it. And sometimes things that get put out there aren't necessarily for us, they're for other people to see. Yeah. And you'd say, well, that's BS. Well, a thread's been viewed almost 8 million times. And it's got over 70,000 posts. So there's been enough communication going on there to print out an entire encyclopedia set. And so, but it's just fascinating. So I'm glad you're going down the rabbit hill.
Yep.
It's just a rabbit
going
hole.
Down the
it's
rabbit
just
hole.
beginning.
Yeah.
It's just beginning. It's just beginning. But anyway, I've been on here way too long.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it, JD. Thanks for calling,
All right,
sir.
talk to you later. All right, bye-bye.
Great call by Mr. Seminole. Bill G. Big 12 has both exit fee and gore damages Texas and Oklahoma both settled as 1 year of Tier 1 and 2 media revenue. Yep, 1 year was left on the contract. Big 12 Gore is broad in scope, but excludes Tier 3 media rights. Thank you so much for the super chat. Thank you for your generosity, Bill G. I do appreciate it. Again, looking at what Doug Rohan said, and he's going to be on Big 12 Mafia here in a little bit. I'm looking at the Big 12. I'm looking at the Big 12. I'm looking at the Big 12 amended and restated grant of rights agreement, in which the ACC and the Big 12 copied each other, basically. It looks very similar. It does say there is a difference, though. Subject to paragraph 4, this is the Big 12. Each of the members' institutions irrevocably grants to the conference during the term all rights necessary for the conference to perform the contractual obligations of the conference expressly set forth in the telecast rights agreement. And the telecast rights agreement includes ESPN, ABC, Fox. All of that is telecast rights agreement. So the Big 12, the more I look at this, the Big 12 grant of rights speaks the same language as the ACC grant of rights. I don't see anything different the more I look into it. So this for me comes down to all contractual obligations of a member institution during the term that expressly set forth in the ESPN contract. Before that, it said, regardless of whether such a member institution remains a member of the conference during the entirety of the term. It's the same language. It's the same language. So either it's the same language. So either Clemson is claiming, though, that you have to look at the ESPN agreement, the media agreement between ACC and ESPN. And maybe that media agreement is flawed. Or both the Big 12. That Gore was written in 2012.
Call from
Fuller.
Is that Jeff Fuller?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Give me a second to
You
get
got
the
it.
audio right. Yep. So, how you doing, Greg?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Been interesting to listen. How many others have the
Can't hear you.
pension standards, the patients that go through every
Can't hear you.
a lot of people interested. My school.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Jeff. You were not coming in at all. No audio, Jeff. I think we're going to have to look at we're going to have to find out what that media rights agreement is. We're going to get some of it unredacted. Judge Bledsoe, there was a ruling in the Mecklenburg County pleadings that he ruled that the ACC was going to have to unredact parts of that agreement. But we're probably going to have to see the whole thing to see what Clemson and Florida State are getting at. The Big 12 and the ACC grant of rights are, from a non-lawyer perspective, looking at them both tonight, yes, they look pretty much the same. Pretty much the same. The important, if you just got here, the big story of today is Matt Baker, Tampa Bay Times, which ACC schools voted to sue Florida State. We're trying to find out. If you missed it, go back and watch the beginning of our show.
Call from
Western.
Yes, the floor is yours. Who's calling?
I said I was Western Civic, being impersonated by Jeff Fuller.
Got it. Yes, Jeff Fuller. How are you doing? I can hear you now. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you at all.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I got a weird thing, but I'm good. I'm good now.
Good.
Love Florida State as an institution. So many great fans. I've been seeing a repeated pattern through many years that's largely based on their leadership and their institution, and I've seen it from some fans. You've ever seen the meme or heard the phrase, well, if it isn't the consequences of my own actions? I think we're seeing a lot of that from Florida State over the years. Let's go way back when Bobby Bowden and FSU were given the invitation to join the SEC. They didn't want to do that. There's an argument both sides about where was the better place to stay for them, and I understand it, but would all this be happening if Florida State would have made the choice and to join the SEC, 25 years ago, whenever it was offered? That's one thing. The other thing, more to the point of what we're discussing with the grant of rights and the media contract. Let's go back to when this was made. The Big Ten was being aggressive. They had just taken Maryland and Rutgers and had made strong overtures to North Carolina and Virginia, apparently wanted them as their first choices, and sort of took Maryland and Rutgers as backup plans. This whole contract was meant to lock in those border schools. There was no thought of idea of jumping over territory and going across the country or all the way down in the South. So these southern schools, Clemson and Florida State mainly, Miami, I'm sure, really, really wanted to lock in the Tobacco Row and Virginia. And so they devised a contract as a conference and with ESPN for two reasons. One is to lock those schools in long term. Put a message out to the Big Ten to don't come poaching here. We are not available. The other side was to create an ACC network because they said, hey, we got a lot of great schools. We're going to compete with the SEC. We're good in football and we are the best in basketball. And create an ACC network, and thought they would rival the Big Ten network, the SEC network. We see what's happened. That's not what's happened. It's provided good content, but again, it's not throwing off the cash of the SEC network or the Big Ten network. So we're in a situation now that as soon as it's clear that there is a huge gap, Florida State's like, let's jump on out. We can do better. We're better. We're propping up this conference now. And again, like I said, if it isn't the consequences of my own actions. One more point, even the playoff, and I've mentioned this before, the 12-team playoff was supposed to start last year, and Florida State would have been in it, no question. But, the alliance largely due to the ACC teaming up with the Big Ten and the Pac-12. That is why Florida State didn't get a spot in the playoff. That's the main reason. So again, a repeated pattern where I know they're frustrated, but looking from the outside as someone who's not a fan of the conference or of the school, they're really a bull in the china shop. The way they're sort of going in and just trying to destroy everything with the legal. They're going in, they're throwing punches and haymakers, and I get it. That's their style. But just wanted to mention that and get your response to that. And then once you've responded, I do have one more comment about Nebraska, as you discussed a few shows ago.
I agree with somewhat what you're saying, but I'm gonna hold some of my comment until after the call on a very important point that I think it's lost in all this. But anyways, go ahead and talk about Nebraska. I do agree with most of what you said. Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. I find it really interesting, the Nebraska story, and everything I've seen, everything you've reported is coming from Nebraska. It's not coming from national reporters. It's not being leaked through Big Ten sources from other schools. Yeah. This is all from Nebraska. And, something doesn't pass the smell test as far as Nebraska really being booted out of the Big Ten for academic reasons. I think this is all political play, because there's some powers that be there that want to fuse the Omaha Medical School with the Lincoln campus, and the synergy that may come from that, and just the security that may come from that. But it's funny, though, I agree that no school has been kicked out of conferences for, poor athletic performance. And you've said that, a lot of people say, Vandy shouldn't be in the SEC, Northwestern Indiana, they shouldn't be in the Big Ten, kick them out. They don't belong athletically. But what we're seeing is that, the Big Ten, which exists as an athletic conference, is, it doesn't pass the smell test that they are going to kick out schools for poor academic performance, poor research performance, but they'd never kick anyone out of an athletic conference for athletic, malfeasance or just not performing. It just seems weird to me that, that someone could be kicked out of a conference for academic reasons, short of legal issues or, major, scandals and such. Why would they be kicked out for research or academic reasons at an athletic conference, but no one could be kicked out of an athletic conference for athletic reasons? Does that not strike you as very ironic?
Well, yes. Point one, I thought it was political as well. When we've talked about this story out of Lincoln 3 different times on this show, because it's been brought up 3 different ways. I thought it was political too the first time I did it. I talked about it. I said, there's no threat here. This is political. But then when Sam McEwen said, Trev Alberts has been talking to him about this potentiality. When Steve Sipple goes on and says, yes, I've been talking about people in Nebraska athletic department. Now it ain't political. There must be something there. Every school that joins the Big Ten does get into a probationary period. And then everything beyond that is very vague. And when you talk about research, you're talking over the lifetime of like 6 years, you're talking billions of dollars, Jeff. Billions of dollars.
Yeah.
The University of Minnesota does so many research with other schools in the Big Ten. They bring in money to other schools in the Big Ten, like Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, now Washington, Maryland. That's why I kind of scoff when people say, well, Minnesota doesn't, their viewership is all a little bit less. University of Minnesota brings so much money into the Big Ten schools, it's ridiculous. So that research is actually more important to the health of the schools than the athletic departments.
And you have a good point there. I would point out I do have background in this. I went to UAB as an MD, PhD student. I have lots of experience with writing grants, writing papers, living in the medical academic world, and I understand the dollars involved. It's serious. But I also understand that, sort of what we're seeing here with the Big Ten and sort of the AU by surrogacy, or on a larger scale, is, we're going to get our people in these grant review committees, and we're going to maybe give a little nudge to our sister schools in our conference. And I'm sorry, that's just not cool. That's not right. I know it's how the world works. But again, if the Big Ten really kicks Nebraska or anyone out for academic poor performance, you're gonna see people who are already cynical about a big conference like the Big Ten or the SEC. You're going to see a lot more cynicism, a lot more hate for that kind of academic elitism, and just a word to the wise on that.
Got it.
And I'm going to hang up and listen. I appreciate the show. I'm stirring the pot a little bit, ranted a little bit, but I appreciate the time.
Got it. I appreciate it. Thank you for the call. I don't know how serious it really is for Nebraska. I mean, I don't know. All I know is the Nebraska people keep talking about it. They keep talking about it. The President Carter, the former President Carter, now President Ohio State, Trev Alberts, Colbert, the interim president. And look, when you come into the Big Ten, you're under a probationary period. So if there's benchmarks that they have to hit, their research has been anemic. I don't know. I mean, again, I would put my chips, if I was a betting man, I'd say Nebraska would not be kicked out. Maybe it's just a kick in the pants from the Big Ten. I don't know. I don't know about this elitist stuff. These Big Ten universities are research universities. That's what their intended purpose is. So I don't know. I don't think there's anything elite about being a big research university and solving issues across this country when it comes to medical. Now, kicking somebody out, is that elitist? I don't know. I guess some people would think that, but I think Nebraska probably will be fine. But Nebraska keeps talking about it. So if there's another article from another Nebraska writer talking about it, I'm going to bring it up again. If there's another Nebraska leader that says we've got to, I mean, my goodness, look at this. Look at this comment. Bottom line, improvement in academic and research performance is imperative to our continued membership in the Big Ten. That was their President Carter writing that December, just a few months ago. I don't know. But I had to report it here at Peek Around the Corner. On the other thing, and I want to bring this up, and if you're new to the channel, please, if you haven't done so, please subscribe. Get yourself notified for notifications. We can come up live at any time. Any breaking news, or there very well could be breaking news tomorrow. So keep your head on a swivel. So please hit the subscribe button, have your notifications on, and please smash that like button if you've liked our content today. In regards to Florida State being the bully in the China shop and all that, yeah, I agree with some of that. Yeah, they did sign the contract. I agree with that. I agree with all this. I agree with that. But, and there's a big but to this. I want to know what's in that media agreement. Because you know why? I keep going back to it. Because the Gore, traditionally it does what I've explained it before over and over again. But that media agreement, do you know what we did not know? Nobody knew this. Nobody knew this. Well, except for Arrigo, no, who talked about a look-in clause in 2021. But no national reporter knew this. They said it at the time when this nuclear bomb went off in the Florida Board of Trustees. These reporters said, holy smokes, and I did as well. Nobody knew that ESPN could decline ACC distribution rights for beyond 2027. Nobody knew that. That was part of the trade secrets. So when that bomb went off, what else is in that media agreement? What else is in that media agreement? Does it say when Clemson leaves, we're not going to distribute those games? And then suddenly Clemson can make the argument, I think, when reading that grant of rights. What is in there? What else is in there? And is that why Florida State hesitated to sign it in the first place? Yes, they signed the agreement. ACC got stability. Florida State got some consideration. ACC network was built. But I want to see that media agreement before I just say everybody is just being a bully in the China shop. Because ESPN was the big bully there when it can just walk away. That means, you know what that means if they can walk away beyond 2027? That means that Florida State did not get the stability, that Clemson did not get the stability that they signed their name on. What if, hold on everybody, what if the economy just tanked after the ACC signed that deal? What if we were in a 10-year depression? What if it just, the media rights just tanked? Then that media agreement would be fantastic for Florida State, Clemson, and those other schools. ACC had the right to bail out. They just had the right to say, nah, we're done here. This is way too much money. They have the right to pull out. Which means that Clemson and Florida State did not get the stability that you would normally get in a traditional grant of rights. So I don't know if this grant of rights does go to 2036. It might just go to 2027. The judges might rule on that because of what's in that media agreement. And what's in that media, what else is in there? If that's in there, what else is in there? So I'm not going to go to the extremes on either side because ESPN already kind of pulled a fast one, in my opinion. Did they pull other fast ones? Anyways, I want to thank you all for being with us here live show. We've been on the air for over 2 hours. I got to eat dinner with the wife, the little general, the one who rules with an iron fist. Please, everybody in the chat, go to Big 12 Mafia. Watch Doug Rohan, the lawyer. I don't know if they've already started or not. He'll be able to answer your questions on the grant of rights. I compare the ACC and the Big 12. They look similar to me. Some of the language, I think, favors the ACC. Maybe a little bit. I can understand Clemson's and Florida State's argument. But again, Clemson and Florida State are saying, gotta read the media rights agreement, and we don't have it. It's not in public view. So I want to thank the people who donated to us, everybody who watched us and put great comments in the chat. I appreciate it. And the great phone calls. Stick with us here at Peek Around the Corner. Keep your head on a swivel for tomorrow, April 11th, Thursday. We're looking for some things to come on down. And if it happens, we are going to be carrying it live here at PATC. Until next time, from all of us to all of you, please you all take great care of each other. Thank you so very much.